Welcome in everybody to the Seth Floyd Show. I'm your host Seth Floyd Hansen, and 49er fans, it's over. It's finally over. We have been put out of our misery. The 2024 season for the 49ers is finally done. I almost recorded last night, but I decided to wait just to see if any news would drop today. I mean, what else could I say last night? Yeah, we got pounded by the Cardinals when we had our whole practice squad in, and four of our starters who actually kind of are players for us got hurt or ejected. Juwan Jennings, Mustafa, what's his name? Talvino Hufanga, and then Garendo. Like a couple of the guys, some of the guys you want to watch, they get hurt and they're out. So what was I going to say last night? I was hoping to get more news, and we got a little bit. Nothing big, nobody fired, but man, it just feels so good to have the season over finally. That is one of the worst seasons in memory. And you know what? It's worse than the 2020 season. The 2020 season was crazy because of COVID. You didn't have people in the bleachers. And then you had Jimmy Garoppolo only played 6 or 7 games. So you could focus on that. Your starting quarterback was out. And so anytime your quarterback is out for at least half the season, like no one expects anything of you. Well, this year wasn't that way. We had a lot of injuries, but Brock was healthy most of the time, except for 2 games. And just, it was one thing after another. And it just sucked. It was terrible. So I'm glad it's over. I'm glad we can push past this and move on. Now, a couple of the things I just wanted to do a quick video of what I'm looking for this week, essentially. Okay. And the biggest thing, the biggest question that I think most 49er fans have right now is what is going to happen with Nick Sorensen. Matt Mayoko said on his podcast kind of what we were all kind of hoping to hear. We're trying to get inside information. What is going to happen with some of these coaches, mostly Nick Sorensen? And this is what Mayoko said. He said essentially, I think we all kind of expect Brian Schneider to be gone, okay, the special teams coordinator. And he did say, he said, if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago about Nick Sorensen, I would have told you I thought he was going to be back. Felt like the vibes were good. I don't know if he was talking about after the Bears game or whatever, but he said I was feeling pretty good. Now he said, I'm not so sure. He kind of is leaning towards, I think he might be gone, just given how the year finished, how atrocious it was at the end, and given some of the candidates that are out there currently. But as of Monday night, okay, after the game, no one's been fired, okay. He did talk about how he caught Shanahan after his end-of-game presser and just said, when should we expect to hear from you again? And Shanny kind of looked at him and was like, do I have to speak tomorrow? And Matt Mayoko was like, no, I don't think so. That's not a rule, I don't think. And Shanny said, you probably will hear from me later this week after I've been able to talk to the team, make some decisions, talk to coaches, and really have some concrete things to tell you guys. And I think that caught Mayoko off guard a little bit. Anyway, he took that kind of to mean like there are some real changes coming, real changes, and good, as there should be. And it needs to start with Nick Sorensen. I don't know. I haven't studied the All-22. I've said this, but you just watch these games and you can tell guys are frequently out of position. And I'm not talking about the Cardinals game. You have practice squad players in there. And the second half of the year, you really had a lot of guys hurt. Like once you're out of contention, I get that it's a much harder business to keep playing your best. But throughout the season, you just had some real head-scratching things taking place. Throughout the season, you couldn't get a stop against the Rams in the first meeting when you needed it most in that second half. You couldn't stop Kyler Murray on that long drive after Mason fumbled and they went down and scored and took the lead. I mean, you couldn't stop Geno Smith after, you had him pinned deep. They went like 90 yards and scored a touchdown to lose that game. Like, you couldn't stop Baker Mayfield from getting into field goal range when you needed it most. I know the Niners went on to win that game. Brock Purdy and Jake Moody came up big, but man, I don't know. It just feels like he's got to be gone. And given who's out there, you have a chance to upgrade your defense coordinator position. Okay, the biggest name is Robert Saleh. I love Robert Saleh. I think he would be great coming back. I assume so. Now that defense that he had in 2020 was great. He was still a part of that 2019 defense was great. The 2020 season, he was still there, but it didn't go how he wanted. We had a lot of injuries, whatever. But I assume he'd be able to get that cohesion back, that aggression back for the defense. I assume it would go the way you would hope. But it's no lock. But I would take my chance with Robert Saleh over any other guy. The other one, part of that situation is Jeff Oldbrook. Everyone expects Jeff Oldbrook to be available. I don't think he's going to get the Jets job, even though he's going to interview for the head coaching position. Do we want Jeff Oldbrook? I've heard some mixed reviews. I think most people would like Jeff Oldbrook. They have a good view and opinion of him. But I think that the defense in New York may have been overrated. He technically was the defense coordinator. They had a lot of talent on that defense, but it does feel like they underperformed. I'm not even talking about this year. I'm talking about, last year wasn't always the best. It's hard to evaluate. It's hard to know for sure. Without going through the film. I'm sure people have gone through the film and could give you more. But I think I would take him over Nick Sorensen. That's for sure. It'll be interesting. And the other tie to that is it sounded like Shanahan wanted Jeff Oldbrook before he hired Nick Sorensen. The Jets weren't going to let him out of his contract. He's a Bay Area guy, played for the 49ers. If you're a 90s kid, really watched football in the early 2000s like I did for 49er football, you know who Jeff Oldbrook was. He wasn't like a standout linebacker. He played for the Niners in one of the worst eras of 49er history. But I remember Jeff Oldbrook as a kid, and I was playing Pop Warner, and I played a little linebacker, and remember thinking I wanted to be like Jeff Oldbrook. Just didn't know better, but maybe he could. Maybe he'd be a huge upgrade, and we don't know. Maybe he really was the secret to that Jets defense, and it got crazy once he had to become the head coach. That's a real thing. When you have to be the head coach or interim head coach, and you can no longer just focus on one side of the ball, it gets crazy. It's a lot harder than it seems. So maybe he's the answer. I don't know. The Bengals just fired their DC, I think, which was kind of a shock. He was great. He was great in 2021. They beat Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game, and he was a big part of that, giving Mahomes fits. He's always given Mahomes fits. His defense has. He's always been able to find that. So I know that's tempting. Their defense was historically bad this year. Is that him or was that personnel? I don't know. I'm not positive. I couldn't tell you. I know at times he's been great, though, when he's had good scheme around him. Gus Bradley just got let go from the Colts. He's been tied to Shanahan in the past, or at least Shanahan has been interested in him in the past. So I don't know, guys. These are just potential names. These are potential names. Shanahan has got to make some kind of move, though. The worst news would be we're going to keep Nick Sorensen. I trust Shanny's acumen, his football acumen. So if he believes that Sorensen is the guy and that this year was not his fault, it was more injuries, I'm inclined to give Shanahan the benefit of the doubt, even though I'm really skeptical. I at least will ride with that and trust that, hey, if we get the offensive defensive lines fixed, this whole thing looks different. If the defensive line had stayed healthy and played to its potential like we thought it would with this personnel, then maybe we're singing Nick Sorensen's praises that he's the next D'Amico Ryans. I don't know. Maybe Shanahan thinks that, but I don't think that's the case, and I hope he fires him. Saleh's my number one pick, though. That would be my number one choice. I'm just throwing that out there. Lastly, I wanted to touch on one more thing. So the biggest thing, what happens with Nick Sorensen? I expect Brian Schneider to be gone. There's not going to be any personnel decisions right now. I know you all want to see Jake Moody cut. I don't think that'll happen yet. Maybe. I would love to see a Brock Purdy contract extension. I don't think that's happening this week. But if you remember, Jimmy Garoppolo got extended in January, I believe, even before the combine. That would make my life to just extend Brock and get this thing over with, because you can't do much else if Brock isn't extended. It feels like you can't do a Greenlaw deal. You can't make some of these other roster moves if you don't have the biggest piece kind of figured out. So those are the biggest thing this week. Look for Nick Sorensen, what happens with him, and who are we going to hire to replace him. Lastly, Tyreek Hill, guys. This Tyreek Hill situation is crazy. Crazy. What is the deal? Why is he so upset? I know he went for less than 1,000 yards this year. The Dolphins missed the playoffs. This is his first time in his... Man, I'm super stuffed up all of a sudden. I've been completely fine all day, and now as soon as I flip on the camera, I'm super congested. So sorry if I sound nasally. They missed the playoffs, and it's the first time in his career, and he's super unhappy all of a sudden. He had 1,700 receiving yards last year, now to this, and he basically said, I'm out. I want to be traded. I want to be gone. I know what you're all thinking, 49ers fans. Should we trade for him? I thought that would be a fun thing to talk about real quick. It basically comes down to this. What would the Dolphins ask for him? He's gonna be, I think he's 31 right now, gonna be 32, something. He's either 30 right now, gonna play at 31 next year, or he's 31 right now. What is he worth? Are the Dolphins gonna be staunch and say we're getting a first round pick and nothing less? I don't know if a team would pay him that, especially because like the stuff with Tyreek has gotten weird. He's got 500 kids with 500 different women. Like, I know that shouldn't be a knock, but kind of a head scratcher, kind of a, hey man, you're married. It'd be one thing if you were single, but he's like married and he keeps having kids with different women. Like, that's like a character concern for me. Like, maybe the guy doesn't have the best moral compass. I don't know. Whatever. I just think it's fair to ask, is he the best locker room guy is all I'm saying. But he's the most feared receiver in the league because of his speed, or he was at least the last couple of years. How many good years does he have left? I don't know. I would think he's got one really good year left. If he came to a new team, was refreshed, re-energized, feels like he's on a Super Bowl contender, and then he'd probably have another year after that where he's not as good but still pretty dang good, and then he's probably washed after that. So I would say 2 years of really high quality football. Can you get him for less than a first? If you can get him for less than a first, I'm calling and trying to figure out what that price is and really trying to decide if it's worth it, because Tyreek is a whole different animal. Now, he's not going to block. Can Shanahan get over that? Maybe, maybe not. He's so fast. I imagine you could swallow it for a year or two. Given the uncertainty in our wide receiver room, it feels like he would be a slam dunk. What's going to happen with Debo? I don't know. It might be gone. When is Ayuk going to come back? I don't know. Might be gone. Might be gone for the first 4 games, I mean. Pearsall's coming on strong. That's good. Juwan Jennings, man, what a dog. But if you can add Tyreek to the mix, why not? Can I get him for a second and a third? That's super tempting. His contract, that could be an issue. His cap hit is supposed to be $28 million going into the 2025 season. It's not the end of the world, but can you restructure it? Probably. I think his contract has an out after the 2025 season, but it would be tough to give up a second and a third for a 1-year rental. So there would have to be some type of restructuring going on. I don't know. I'm interested. I don't know. I think it would unlock the offense. I think giving that weapon to Shanahan would be incredible, and teams would be terrified going into next year if you had it. I don't know. I think the starting point is, can you get him for less than a first? If you can, make a phone call, try to deal a little bit and see what you come up with. I don't think anyone's giving up a first for Tyreek. I don't think so. Not at this point. Maybe the Chiefs would. I don't know. I guess the Dolphins probably would do that deal if the Chiefs would. Buffalo probably would, but the Dolphins aren't trading him to Buffalo. The Rams would, because that's what the Rams do. They hate their picks. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's something to monitor. It's something to monitor over the next coming weeks, because that drama's not over, and we'll see what happens. But for our fans, it's great. Take a breath of fresh air. We can move on from this season. Enjoy the playoffs. Hopefully the Rams lose to the Vikings this week. Hopefully the Chiefs lose to, hopefully it's the Chargers in 2 weeks. They probably won't, but we'll see. There's some good football left. And what happens with Nick Sorensen? You guys tell me what's going to happen with him. Should we fire him? Should we keep him? Do we want Saleh to come back? Would you rather have Jeff Oldbrook? I got an itch. You tell me, okay? We're in this together. I'll come out with another video later this week, hopefully updating on some of the stuff that's gone down. And we're rocking and rolling. Off-season's going to be fun. Finally, the 2024 season's over. I feel refreshed, re-energized. It's going to be a good off-season. Go Niners.